Welcome, aviation enthusiasts and history buffs, to Classic Duels, a captivating mini-documentary series that takes you deep into the heart of the adrenaline-pumping battles that unfolded in the skies during World War II. In this episode, we're back in the skies above Europe in 1944-45, and we're going to talk about the game-changing duels between the German Messerschmitt Me jet fighter versus the North American P-51 Mustang. The aerial encounters between the Messerschmitt Me jet fighter and the North American P-51 Mustang during the final year of World War II form one of the most dramatic chapters in aviation history. These duels symbolise the transition from the piston-engine fighter age to the dawn of jet warfare. Here is some history, context and details of their duels. By mid-1944, the air war over Europe had entered its final and most decisive phase. The Allies dominated the skies with swarms of P-51 Mustangs, P-47 Thunderbolts and Spitfires escorting bomber formations deep into German territory, while the Luftwaffe on the other hand was bleeding strength and suffering crippling losses of experienced pilots and aircraft. By 1944, the P-51D Mustang was the backbone of the USAAF's long-range escort force. It had excellent overall performance and had a good armament of 650 caliber machine guns. Although it was slower than the Me-262, the Mustang dominated piston-engine combat. Of course, when escorting Allied bombers, the Mustang's job was to protect the bombers, and as the jets appeared, to hunt them down whenever possible. The V3 prototype of the Me-262 first flew in June 1942, but due to technical problems, material shortages, batteries getting bombed, and even Adolf Hitler himself interfering and wanting the Me-262 as a high-speed bomber, it wouldn't properly enter service until mid-1944. The Me-262's twin Junkers Jumo 004 turbojets made the aircraft capable of speeds well over 500 miles per hour, so it was over 100 miles per hour faster than any of the top Allied piston-engine fighters, and it was also well armed with four 30mm Mark 108 cannons, which proved lethal against both Allied bombers and fighters. Plus, it was capable of carrying R4M rockets, which made it even more deadly against Allied bombers. The Me-262 was theoretically untouchable for the top piston-engine fighters like the Mustang, yet history proved that duels between Me-262s and P-51s did happen regularly, and the outcome was far more complex than speed alone suggested. Me-262s first saw combat in the summer of 1944, engaging RAF Mosquitoes and American bombers. Initially used as a bomber interceptor, its presence shocked Allied bomber crews, and reports of jets faster than anything seen before began to circulate. However, P-51 Mustang pilots soon learned the weaknesses of the Me-262. It was slow and vulnerable during takeoff and landing. Its Jumo 004 jet engines were unreliable and were prone to flameouts or failure if throttled too aggressively, and it had poor acceleration at low speeds. The Me-262 squadrons quickly identified the P-51 Mustang as a primary threat, and American commanders quickly ordered fighter sweeps near Luftwaffe jet bases such as Lechfeld, Achmer and Parchim. This is where the P-51s would loiter overhead and pounce on Me-262s as they climbed or returned to land. This tactic, while effective, was controversial and even derided by some Luftwaffe pilots as cowardly ambushing, but it was the most practical way to neutralise the jet threat, and many Mustang pilots, including the likes of Chuck Yeager, scored Me-262 kills while ambushing them in vulnerable positions. Because of the Mustangs and other Allied fighters loitering around the jet bases, the Luftwaffe created airfield protection squadrons, which usually involved D9 model Focke-Wulf FW-190s protecting the Me-262s from swarms of Mustangs while they were taking off and landing. The first such victories for the P-51D against the Me-262s didn't occur until October 7, 1944. American pilot Urban L. Drew of the 361st Fighter Group intercepted and shot down two Me-262s near Achmer Aerodrome. Drew's attack came as the jets were climbing slowly, still accelerating after takeoff, which illustrated the vulnerability of jets at low speed. On the 8th of November in 1944, Major Walter Novotny, who was a famous Luftwaffe ace and commander of a jet unit, scrambled in an Me-262 and shot down a B-24 Liberator and P-51 Mustang. but when returning to base, he was intercepted by a couple Mustangs and his jet crashed, killing him in the process. Many witnesses, including Adolf Galland, saw his jet appear out of the clouds and dive vertically into the ground, and his death highlighted the vulnerability of jets to Allied fighters. Like Novotny, Adolf Galland was a famous Luftwaffe fighter ace who also commanded a jet unit when he formed JV-44 in February 1945, and he was a strong advocate for the Me-262 as a fighter. Galland's JV-44 was known as a squadron of experts due to the number of high-scoring ace pilots that joined this unit, and their duels with the Mustangs over Bavaria in April 1945 were some of the fiercest late-war clashes. Galland himself ended up getting wounded in combat while flying the Me-262 against P-47 Thunderbolts, but survived. By early 1945, Me-262s were committed in larger numbers, especially against US AAF bombing raids, with one example being on the 18th of March, when 37 Me-262s of JG-7 intercepted a force of over 1,200 Allied bombers and just over 630 escorting fighters. This resulted in 12 bombers and 1 fighter being shot down, with 3 Me-262s lost. Plus, I'll also mention that the Me-262s played a limited role in Operation Bodenplatte. When caught at speed and altitude, the Me-262 was a deadly opponent. If it attacked a bomber formation unopposed, a single pass could devastate B-17s or B-24s, and the escorting Mustangs had only seconds to react. The Me-262 could outrun the P-51 with ease, and the Mustang pilots often described the jet as a silver streak disappearing into the distance. The Me-262s performed hit-and-run or boom-and-zoom attacks, where they dived into the bomber formations at high speed and unleashed cannon fire or rockets towards the bombers, and then breaking away before the escorts could react. While the Me-262's 4 30mm nose-mounted cannons packed a hell of a punch and were devastating if they hit, their short effective range and low muzzle velocity made deflection shooting difficult against the more nimble Mustangs. So with these points in mind, the Me-262 pilots relied on speed and hit-and-run strikes, and avoid turning duels at all costs. The main advantage the Mustangs had over the Me-262 was that it was far more manoeuvrable at low and medium speeds, especially in turns. So, if a P-51 could surprise a Me-262 or force it into a turning fight, the Mustang had the advantage. However, the Mustang's main objective was to escort and protect the bombers, and were ordered not to chase unless they were directly attacked. This was because when combating a German fighter, the Mustangs had to immediately drop their external tanks, which affected their range and meant they couldn't fully escort the bombers all the way to their targets, thus making the unescorted bombers vulnerable to other German fighters. Like I mentioned earlier, the Mustang pilots knew they couldn't catch the jet in level flight, so instead they patrolled near their airfields and either pounced while the jets were taking off or landing, which was when they were slow, or they attacked the jets on the ground before they could fly. So overall, the Mustangs didn't need to outfire the Me-262 in the air so much. It more needed to deny it operational freedom by dominating the German skies and ambushing the jets during vulnerable phases. The aerial combat between the Messerschmitt Me-262 and the P-51 Mustang represented the clash of two eras, the dawn of the jet age versus the pinnacle of piston engine design. The Me-262 was faster and more advanced, but plagued by technical problems, limited numbers and operational vulnerabilities. But several pilots were able to claim multiple kills against the Mustang right up until the final days of the war. The P-51 Mustang was a reliable and agile aircraft that was present in massive numbers and was perfectly adapted to exploit the weaknesses of the German jets. Despite the Me-262s arriving late in the war and only in smaller numbers, American fighter units lodged nearly 170 air-to-air destroyed, probable and damaged Me-262 claims. Plus, there were numerous ground victories in strafing runs. In direct combat, the Me-262 could rarely be caught at speed, but in the broader campaign, the Mustang played a big part in decisively containing and destroying the jet threat. In fact, the closing months of the war heralded the dawn of a new era in aerial combat, in which a small number of the German new generation jet and rocket-powered aircraft were pitted against the ultimate designs of piston engine fighters, such as the late Spitfires, Hawker Tempest, de Havilland Mosquito, P-47 Thunderbolts, and of course the P-51 Mustang. So that's it for this glimpse into epic struggles of the past. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with more riveting tales of aviation history, etc. Check out the 2 videos at the end, all my CD reviews, or even the playlist I've created. Cheers.